Hello there, my name is Hilary Oxford-Smith and I'm a member of the clergy team at Vaughan Park Anglican Retreat Centre in Auckland. Thank you very much for your company today. I'm delighted to introduce you to Lynne Condon. I've known Lynne for a few years now, both as a colleague and a friend, and I hope that today you'll get to know her too. Lynne has worked as a psychotherapist for 20 years in hospice care. She also has a special interest in how we can use times of change and transition as opportunities for growth, development, and participation in the everyday sacred. In this video conversation, which Lynne has named A Place Called Home, she'll be offering some insights on home, not just as a place, but also as a metaphor, as representative and symbolic of something else. We're really grateful for your presence with us here today, Lynne, and look forward to hearing what you'll share with us. So I'd like to begin by asking you, what is it about home that interests you?
Well, thank you, Hilary, for that introduction. And the words stay home are words that we've heard so often over recent months, and they've become something of a mantra. But what can we say about home if we think of it as a metaphor rather than a place? In his book, Common Sense Spirituality, David Stendhal Rast tells of the Jewish tradition of building a sukkah to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, a major Jewish festival celebrated in the autumn to commemorate the sheltering of the Israelites in the wilderness. It's marked by the erection of temporary booths or sukkahs, which are covered in natural materials. The rabbi's rule for the building of these booths is make the walls not too dense so that you can see your neighbours through them, and make the roof loose enough to look through to the stars.
I understand that some of these temporary sukkahs are really imaginatively built and decorated, and some are festooned with various flowers and fauna, reflecting the colours of the arriving autumn. And that on a clear night with the harvest moon, everything is lit up and lovely. I just love to see it. And it seems as if one simple meaning of this annual festival for the people is about really going back to nature, camping out, living in huts, tents, or temporary dwellings, reminding them of a more simple and primitive time when the ancient Israelites in the time of Moses lived in this nomadic temporary way for 40 years as they wandered the desert searching for home. And as I've pondered this festival, the question that we could ask ourselves is this: if we were to build our own sukkah, how would we build it? And what would it look like? Would we want the walls to be thick and solid? Would we want to see the stars and the moon from inside? And over these past few days, I've been thinking about how and what I might build. And that might be a question for all of us to creatively ponder in the days ahead.
Well, what great questions, Hilary. And while the rules for building the sukkah are simple, there are two opposing tendencies within us which want to break them. The tendency to drift, for drifters don't build anything, and our tendency to entrench ourselves behind solid walls. Both are forms of fear in disguise. We fear to be still and still moving. And the paradox is that both abilities, to be still and to move, are essential if, as Pico Iyer, a British-born essayist and novelist, says, home is the place where you become yourself, a becoming that is an essential part of our growing and maturing. And all religious traditions describe this process of becoming as the journey of coming home. This description introduces another metaphor, that of journey. And as with any journey, in this inner journey, we encounter different landscapes. We could think of the journey of the last several weeks of lockdown as a desert environment, a desert landscape, characterized by a sense of isolation from family, friends, work colleagues, and schoolmates, with an increasing sense of boredom resulting from the restriction of movement and activity. For many of us, embracing and adapting to this harsh and challenging environment has been difficult, and we have transitioned through the levels, each one of them being accompanied by an excitement about the possibility of a new landscape, a promised land of more movement and opportunity, where we can once again embrace the fullness of life. For some people, however, the arrival of the different levels has been a continuation and possibly a deepening of the desert experience, as they grapple with the impact of losing their job, of increased debt, the loss of a loved one, and an uncertain future. But once again, literature can help us develop and deepen our reflection. What makes the desert beautiful is that somewhere it hides a well, says the little prince in the book of the same name. And as I think of the experience of living through this global pandemic and the images presented to us in the media, it seems that for many, the well in the desert has been found. Families gathered, learning happened, and as activities were shared, fun, creativity, and ingenuity were born. But for others, sadly, this is not the experience for them. For them, the desert is a place of danger, risk, violence, and uncertainty.
Yes, that's so right. And everyone's experience has been unique. And I think that whatever our experience and wherever we live in the world, we are all still living in a desert time. And another way to describe it, I think, might be to say that we're living in an interim time, where much of what we have ever known now seems changed or has been lost. And yet the way forward has still not been fully revealed to us. And yet there are still wells of life to be discovered, but sometimes we don't recognize them as such. The Celtic Christian scholar and writer John Philip Newell, in his book A New Harmony, talks about the holy well within all things. And he recounts the experience of Etty Hillesum, a young Jewish woman who was sent to Auschwitz. And even before arriving at the camp, she spoke of a well deep inside every human being in which the sacred dwells. Yet so often, she said, the inner well can be blocked with stones and grit, and it must be dug out again. John Philip believes that part of digging God out is releasing the woundedness of God as we hearken to the depths of the other, naming the sorrow when our child suffers, when Earth's species are crucified, when the people and the nations we love are wronged and in pain. We will find the way forward in our lives and in the world, he says, by not ignoring or playing down the agony of Earth's journey or the pain of our particular paths, but by hearing the sacredness of the cry. I love the poetry and blessings and prayers of writer and artist Jan Richardson. She's a United Methodist minister in the States. And in thinking about the discovery of the holy well within all things and our own inner wells, I've been reminded of her blessing, and I'd like to share it. In the leaving, in the letting go, let there be this to hold on to: the enduring of love, the persisting of hope, the remembering of joy, the offering of gratitude, the receiving of grace, the blessing of peace.
What a lovely blessing, Hilary. And I hear it echoing what David Stendhal Rast in the book I've already mentioned says and suggests as one way to progress on this journey of becoming. And that is to give thanks for all the things, little and big, that make up our day. And as we travel, we can gather the gifts and treasures of our lives, weave stories of who we are and where we've come from, and listen to the possibilities of the road ahead. During the COVID-19 experience, there has been, and continues to be, a growing space to appreciate and say thank you to all who are contributing to the greater good throughout this unsettling time. In May, frontline health workers said a huge thank you to Kiwis for helping to avert a medical catastrophe by staying at home and staying in their bubble. Also memorable are the many expressions of appreciation and gratitude for those working in essential services and contributing to the security of the food supply chain to our communities and the country as a whole. And overseas, who could remain unmoved as we watched Captain Tom walking the length of his garden and raising millions of pounds through the response of others to his amazing feat. In this extraordinary time, it seems that everyone, from our Prime Minister to Queen Elizabeth, from large corporations to the ordinary man and woman in the street, and even our children, all are recognising the service of others and saying thank you. I wonder, will we be able to keep this attitude of gratitude going beyond the threat of COVID-19? So let's remember that to come home to ourselves, all we need to do is to stop, to notice, to discover, and appreciate. It's as simple as that.
That's such a valuable insight, Lynne, and it would be wonderful if we could continue to keep this attitude of gratitude going into the future. And I hope that holding your words in our minds, that we should stop, notice, discover, appreciate, will help us to do this. Well, thank you very much, Lynne, for your wisdom and insights today. And it's been lovely to enjoy the gift of your presence too. A video link and also some links to the writers and resources we've mentioned in our conversation will be posted onto the Vaughan Park website. And I'd also like to thank you all for watching today. And before we go, could I ask you, Lynne, to leave us with a good word?
Thank you, Hilary, and thank you to all who are watching. I think David Stendhal Rast says it all when he says, people who have faith in life are like swimmers who entrust themselves to the rushing river. They neither abandon themselves to its current nor try to resist it. Rather, they adjust their every movement to the watercourse and use it with purpose and skill, and enjoy the adventure.
What wise words to bring our conversation to a close. So thank you again for your company. And from Lynne and myself and all at Vaughan Park, go well, and may you and those dear to you be graced with a love that is life-giving and healing.